Hey guys, I'm Apples and Dragons, and I'm here to talk about A Song of Ice and Fire into a microphone. There we go. Candles are lit. I thought I would continue with The Night of the Laughing Tree from where I left off last time. So let me grab a Storm of Swords. By the way, I'm Apples and Dragons. I'm crazy for these books behind me. A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. And this is my regular show. I'm calling it Grey Sheep and Hedge Wizards. This is probably episode 12, I think. It was Harrenhal. Alright, this is where we left off. The Cranog man finds Harrenhal. The towers reached ever higher as he neared shore, until he realized that this must be the greatest castle in all the world. Harrenhal, Bran knew at once. It was Harrenhal. Mira smiled. Was it? Beneath its walls, he saw tents of many colors, bright banners cracking in the wind, and knights in mail and plate on barded horses. He smelled roasting meats, and heard the sound of laughter and the blare of heralds' trumpets. A great tourney was about to commence, and champions from all over the land had come to contest it. The king himself was there, with his son, the Dragon Prince. The White Swords had come to welcome a new brother to their ranks. The Storm Lord was on hand, and the Rose Lord as well. The great Lion of the Rock had quarreled with the king and stayed away, but many of his bannermen and knights attended all the same. The Cranog man had never seen such pageantry, and knew he might never see the like again. Part of him wanted nothing so much as to be part of it. Bran knew that feeling well enough. When he'd been little, all he had ever dreamed of was being a knight, but that had been before he fell and lost his legs. The daughter of the great castle reigned as Queen of Love and Beauty when the tourney opened. 5 champions had sworn to defend her crown, her 4 brothers of Harrenhal, and her famous uncle, a white knight of the Kingsguard. Was she a fair maid? She was, said Mira, hopping over a stone. But there were others fairer still. One was the wife of the Dragon Prince, who had brought a dozen lady companions to attend her. The knights all begged them for favors to tie about their lances. This isn't going to be one of those love stories, is it? Bran asked suspiciously. Hodor doesn't like those so much. Hodor, said Hodor agreeably. He likes the stories where the knights fight monsters. Sometimes the knights are the monsters, Bran. The little Cranog man was walking across the field, enjoying the warm spring day, and harming none, when he was set upon by the 3 squires. Alright, that's enough text to chew on for a while. I might go further. We'll see how long this part takes. So, the Cranog man finds Harrenhal. And it's huge. It's the biggest castle there is. But it's completely unmanageable. I think Tywin Lannister, there's a line somewhere, I think in an Arya chapter, that says Harrenhal was big enough to host Tywin Lannister's entire army and still have plenty of room. Like, when Tywin's there with his army, they don't even fill up the first 2 floors in the feast hall, the great hall where they feast. She said that would be big enough for his entire army and still have room. The one with all the fires in it, fireplaces. So this place is like unbelievably huge, but it's also completely unmanageable. Tywin sets everybody to sort of restoring the castle to get it in working order. And there's just not enough people. The tower is ruined and everything, and needs all these repairs, which is partly because it was burned in the Aegon's conquest. And so some of the towers look like melting candles, where there's sort of the stone and stuff is melted at the tops. But the bottoms are still usable in the middles. So last time I said that Harrenhal represents the arrogance of man, the arrogance of mankind, because it was built without any magic. If you read the histories of the other castles and their origins, most of them, if not all of them, were done with the help of the Children of the Forest before the humans betrayed the children, before the pact was broken, I think. And after that, no more castles were built because they started cutting down weirwood trees and chasing off the Children of the Forest further and further north, until eventually they're pretty much just beyond the wall. That's the last place they got. And Harrenhal also comes with a curse, supposedly. Everybody who owns Harrenhal dies, and has for generations. I think when the story begins, the Whents have it, House Whent. And I think as the story progresses, the Whents lose it, and I think die. I'm not sure about that, though. I think it was Lady Whent. But then I think Janos Slynt gets it, and he dies. He loses it and dies, because he gets sent to the wall by Tyrion. And then Littlefinger gets it, and he's not dead yet, but he's kind of obviously a villain. And I think good money's on Littlefinger's gonna die at some point in this story. But he's kind of being smart about it. Littlefinger says that he doesn't necessarily believe in the curse, but that he can't ignore the fact that everybody who's had it has died. And like, he's sort of playing cautious. Like, I don't know if there is a curse, but I'm just going to stay away from it just in case there is. Which is interesting because it brings up the question of, is he still cursed if he doesn't go there? Like, he's technically the Lord of Harrenhal. He's just never gone there and acted as Lord in it. He's stayed at the Eyrie. So it remains to be seen, I guess. Or maybe the question will sort of be dissolved if he visits it and does begin acting as the Lord of it. So the next paragraph is really big, and it's about the Crannog man just basically seeing Westerosi culture for the first time. It's his first big encounter with a big Westerosi cultural event, and it's a tournament. Well, it's really a bunch of tournaments all in one. I think it lasts for 2 weeks. And there's the jousting tournament is sort of the main event. But there's a bunch of other little tournaments. There's axe throwing and sharpshooting, the bows. Let me find it. Have I actually read that part yet? It says, knights in mail and plate on barded horses. He smelled roasting meats and heard the sound of laughter and the blare of heralds' trumpets. He's never heard trumpets before. He's never seen people in heraldry. Never seen knights in mail and plate. Well, maybe never is too strong of a word. Like maybe he's seen dead ones in the bogs. In the Crannogs. But I get the impression that this is his first journey away from home. Because he's a young adult. But maybe it isn't. I don't know. It says, champions from all over the land had come to contest it. When you read The World of Ice and Fire, the year of the false spring. There's a part that talks about a shadow host, and it gives you an idea of how big the prizes were at this tourney. The prizes were 3 times the size of the prizes at the tourney at Lannisport, which I think is the one for Viserys' birthday. I'm not sure about that. But it's frickin' Lannisport, right? We're talking about House Lannister. The tourney of Harrenhal's prizes were 3 times the size of the ones at House Lannister's tourney. That's insane. In the World of Ice and Fire, Maester Andal, he seems to want to credit the funding of the tournament to a quote-unquote shadow host, who he offers the possibility that it was Rhaegar. But he doesn't necessarily say that it was Rhaegar. He just sort of offers it and suggests that it's the most credible possibility by pointing out that it's the possibility that most people believe, I think. Something like that. And the idea is that since Rhaegar is the crown prince, he could easily fund the tournament. Which is a fine explanation, but considering that Rhaegar's money comes from the crown, and that Rhaegar was in a sort of feud with his father, who wore the crown, it doesn't seem like the most credible explanation. And the rumors about there being a big conspiracy of lords who actually funded the tournament seems more credible when I think about it. Because it would be a lot easier to fund a tournament as lavish as this if the costs are divided by a bunch of different lords, very rich people. And the Shadow Host / Rhaegar did it narrative might exist specifically for the purpose of protecting those lords. By putting the blame on someone else, and even better, putting it on someone who's dead, because a dead person can't defend himself. And he also doesn't need to defend himself, because being dead, his problems are over. So Rhaegar dying kind of made him the perfect scapegoat for conspirators, supposing that there were conspirators, who put on the Tourney of Harrenhal and split the costs among them to hide that, to help hide that they were the ones throwing it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Rhaegar wasn't also involved. And I think he was the ringleader of it. So Aerys and Rhaegar are both there. And King Aerys almost wasn't going to come because he didn't feel safe leaving the Red Keep because he thought there were people trying to kill him. Aerys and Tywin were deep into a very long and contentious rivalry because people were saying that Tywin is the one who really rules the kingdoms. And Aerys really didn't like people saying that, and it drove a wedge between them. And Aerys began undermining Tywin and humiliating him and setting him up to be perceived as the villain by the other lords and on and on. And then Aerys named Tywin's heir, Jaime, to the Kingsguard, effectively stealing him of his heir and leaving him with Tyrion. So the king is there, the Dragon Prince is there, that's Rhaegar. The White Swords had come. I think there's 6 of them. And then Jaime's going to be the 7th. They're going to make him one. It says the Great Lion of the Rock, that's Tywin, had quarreled with the king and stayed away. Interesting, right? It's almost like Tywin knew that some shit was going to go down in this tourney, and he wanted to be as far away as possible so he couldn't be blamed for it. Which is what you would want if you were either the or one of the ringleaders of it. Many of his bannermen and knights attended all the same, so there were plenty of Lannister people there. It says part of the Crannog men wanted nothing so much as to be part of it. So he is on cloud 9. He's never seen anything this awesome. It's his first time in Westerosi culture, and it's like the biggest cultural event that Westeros has ever done in like 30 years or something. So it's a doozy of an introduction to knighthood and tournaments and all the food and just everything, right? Pageantry. Bran sympathizes. It says, when he'd been little, all he had ever dreamed of was being a knight. Which we already know because we can see it in basically all of his chapters since his first chapter in the Game of Thrones. This kid wanted to be a knight. Even in Catelyn's chapters, she remembers Bran wanted to be a knight. But that had been before he fell and lost his legs. Subtext, Bran is sad that he can't be a knight. And he's at a loss for his aspirations for the future. He's missing his aim in life. He needs to find a new one. The daughter of the great castle reigned as Queen of Love and Beauty when the tourney opened. The Queen of Love and Beauty thing, that whole tradition is very interesting. And I haven't fully made sense of it yet, but I think there's probably a theme going on with Queens of Love and Beauty, but I'm not sure about what it is. So, here's what I did. I made a list of all the Queens of Love and Beauty, and I reread and thought about all their situations to try to find a commonality between them. And my current concept of the theme of the Queen of Love and Beauty thing is that a man naming a woman the Queen of Love and Beauty never fails to succeed to win that woman's love. That's one concept, which is hard to prove because you have to be a little loose with the word love and loose with the chronology. Like the love could come before the crowning. And then the crowning just amplifies it. But yeah, it seems to mostly hold up, if not entirely. And then my other concept of the theme of the Queen of Love and Beauty thing is that the person with the strongest motivation is the person who wins the tournament. It's not necessarily the best jouster. And you see that come up in tourneys like the one that Jorah won, where he married Lynesse. He says something like, with Lynesse's favor tied around my arm, I was a different man. So it changed him. And the implication is that it allowed him to win the tournament, despite there being very good challengers there. But this is an interesting wrinkle in the Queen of Love and Beauty tradition as we normally think of it. Because at this tourney, as in at least one or two other tourneys throughout history, the tourney opens with a Queen of Love and Beauty already named. And then it's the task of her champions to defend her title against challengers. And so in this case, the Queen of Love and Beauty is the daughter of the Great Castle. It's the daughter of Lord Whent. And she has 5 champions, and 4 of them are her brothers. And one of them is her uncle, who's in the King's Guard. So that's Oswell Whent. Oswell Whent has a role in the Harrenhal conspiracy. In the World of Ice and Fire, it's said that Oswell visited Harrenhal shortly before the tournament began. So there's a mystery there of what was that visit about? Why did Oswell go back to Harrenhal? I think the story provided is that he was visiting his family. But it's a little suspicious that it happened right before the tourney. In context of, there's a rumor going around that there was a conspiracy at the tourney to overthrow the king. Anyway, there's all kinds of theories about Oswell and what he was actually doing. And I'm pretty sure that in the end, what Oswell was actually doing was exactly what it seemed like he was doing. I think Oswell Whent was Rhaegar's go-between between Lord Whent in order to organize this tournament. This tournament that they're going to use to overthrow the Mad King. And so what's funny about the Oswell Whent detail in the World of Ice and Fire is that Maester Yandel can straight up tell the audience that there was a go-between between Rhaegar and Lord Whent. And we still won't believe that there was actually a conspiracy to overthrow the king at the Tourney of Harrenhal. We'll make up a bunch of other theories about what Oswell was really doing. It must be any answer except what it obviously was. It can't be the thing that happened in the rumor that everybody's talking about, that all the common people are talking about, and only the Maester is discrediting. So anyway, Bran asks, was she a fair maid? Referring to Lord Whent's daughter, the first Queen of Love and Beauty. She was, said Mira, but there were others fairer still. One was the wife of the Dragon Prince, so that's Elia. She's saying Elia was prettier than Lord Whent's daughter, who'd brought a dozen lady companions to attend her. One of those lady companions was Ashara Dane, who was also prettier than Lord Whent's daughter. And according to a few different people, was also prettier than everyone. She was prettier than Elia. I think that's in the World of Ice and Fire, where Maester Yandel says that Ashara Dane made Elia Martell look like a common servant or whatever. The knights all begged them for favors to tie about their lances. So this Queen of Love and Beauty tradition is really interesting. It has all these little pieces to it, and then the essence of the tradition exists in the relationship between the pieces. For example, one piece is that the winner of the tournament gets to crown or name any woman he wants at the tournament the Queen of Love and Beauty. And the title, the Queen of Love and Beauty, means that she's the most beautiful one there, according to the winner, and the primary object of his love. Something like that. Or maybe the woman from which he primarily wants love. I don't know. Maybe it's both. So it's a matchmaking tradition. It's the most competent man of the day gets to win the most desirable woman of the day. And they both get their day in the sun. And it doesn't necessarily need to be sexual. In fact, there are some Queen of Love and Beauties that are explicitly not sexual. Like, I think there's a guy who crowns like a young girl just to make her smile, make her happy. I think it was Alysanne's daughter. I think Dondarrion Knight crowned her, if I remember right. Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily need to be sexual, but when the ages are suitable and both people are unmarried and unbetrothed, then yeah, there's like a sexual implication there. But it's still ultimately up to the Queen of Love and Beauty to decide who she is or isn't going to sleep with. So on the part of the winner, it's still more like a proposition. And if examples like Jorah and Lannister isn't any indication, it's a proposition that generally succeeds, if not always. So there's two competitions happening at a tournament that partakes in this Queen of Love and Beauty tradition. The first competition is between the men. Who's the best at jousting? Or at simulated combat, let's say. Because the tradition might also apply to things like a melee or axe throwing or whatever. I'm not sure. But it seems to mostly, if not exclusively, apply to jousting. And at the same time, there's a competition between the women because they all want to have their day in the sun and be named the most beautiful or the loveliest or whatever. And yeah, apparently a lot of them appreciate it so much that they're won over by the winner, by the man. And so another piece to this tradition is that a competitor in the male competition can approach a woman, apparently any woman, because they approach lady companions of Elia. So the knight has to ask the woman for her favor, which is like some sort of clothing item that she gives him, and then he gets to tie it around his arm, apparently, because that's what Jorah did, or his lance, or I guess whatever, wherever he wants. And I think what that does is it motivates the knight, which ties in with my thesis that the theme, or a theme, of the Queen of Love and Beauty tradition is that the person with the strongest motivation is the person who's going to win the tournament, who's going to win the day. And then Bran says, "This isn't going to be one of those love stories, is it?" Bran asks suspiciously. Hodor doesn't like those so much. So he's using Hodor again to try to manipulate the storyteller, Mira, to tell the story the way that he wants. To tell the kind of story that he wants to hear. Hodor says, "Hodor," agreeably. So, maybe Hodor does agree, and it's harmless manipulation, but Bran is definitely taking some liberties with the fact that Hodor can't speak for himself, and happens to be part of Mira's audience, too. He likes the stories where the knights fight monsters. Sometimes the knights are the monsters, Bran. So Mira's given us a clue that the Reed's differing perspective on knights as sometimes being monsters is a really big clue, I think, to how we should try looking at this story and these mysteries, and maybe even the greater Song of Ice and Fire story. And it's a subject that comes up a lot in other places in the story. For example, when Sansa's getting abused in the throne room, she thinks that the knights in the room are not really true knights, because a knight is supposed to protect women and the weak, and they all just stood by and watched. And you can see how that ties into the role-based way of looking at the world that I was explaining in a previous episode, where if you define a knight as strictly somebody who is simply knighted by another knight, then a knight who beats women is still a knight. But if you define a knight as somebody who actually upholds the vows that a knight takes and embodies the behavior of a knight, then, like Sansa says, they're no true knights. They don't fulfill the role of a knight. Knights sometimes being monsters also comes up with the Cleganes, where there's this tension between Sandor and Gregor. Gregor was knighted, but he's a total freaking monster. And Sandor wasn't knighted, but he seems to be at least closer to it being a true knight than Gregor, because he actually protects Sansa in the ways that he can. And what's interesting is that in that scene where Sansa was being beaten in the throne room, just as the beating was about to get serious, Sandor spoke up. He said enough. And Joffrey was taken aback. And he said, "No, it's not enough. Hit her." And that's when Tyrion came in and interrupted the whole thing and basically rescued Sansa and took her back to the Tower of the Hand. And so there's a question there of What would have happened if Tyrion hadn't showed up? Would Sandor have just fucking gone berserk and killed, who was it, Boros or Meryn? I think it was Meryn Trant. And I think he would have. I don't think Sandor would have been able to stand by and watch a grown man beat up a teenage girl, humiliate her while she's naked and all that. He was about to start hitting her with his sword, I think was what the command was. I would have loved to see Sandor just fucking start killing as many people as he can to protect Sansa. Maybe he could get to Joffrey, just stick his sword right through his stomach. End it all right there. He'd be killed. There's no way he's getting out of that throne room alive. But it would be cool to see how many people he could take down before he goes down. He died a true knight. Sometimes the knights are the monsters, Bran. The little Cranog man was walking across the field, enjoying the warm spring day and harming none, when he was set upon by 3 squires. They were none older than 15, yet even so they were bigger than him, all 3. This was their world, as they saw it, and he had no right to be there. They snatched away his spear and knocked him to the ground, cursing him for a frog-eater. All 3 squires are bigger than the Cranog man, which isn't saying much, because we already learned that all Cranog men are small. They're so small that if my mundane interpretation of his power to run on leaves is correct, that he can actually run across branches without bending them so much that they break. Like, I don't think Cranog men are children of the forest small, but they're definitely like the shortest guy in most rooms that they walk into, I think, is the kind of short they are. Well, small, and then short is part of small. Because small also includes, like, thin and lightweight and just compact in general. This was their world as they saw it, and he had no right to be there. So there's some cultural gatekeeping going on. The squires feel like he doesn't belong because he looks different and he acts different, and he's carrying a 3-pronged spear. Like, what even the heck is that? And he's probably got like an alligator on his chest or something. I don't know. I don't know if the Reeds actually wear their heraldry. No, they don't, actually, because they probably don't. Because heraldry was one of the things that he was looking at earlier, as though he'd never seen it before. The Reed sigil is pretty cool, though. It's an alligator, man. Or a lizard lion. That's what they call it. That's a badass animal. What time is it? I have to go. But that was good. I got a big chunk of it done. Until next time, guys. Thanks for coming.